I mean, look at our country. Our country's shallow.
Oh.
Like brittle. I have to be careful about my language. I'm going to offend this person, or I'm going to offend that person, or I'm going to offend everybody. And I go, man, we don't have the maturity to be able to go, hey, can we talk about this? Mm-hmm. Can we examine this together? What's up, family? Welcome to another episode of the Radical Middle Podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Nixon, and this is my co-host, Lenmarie Pascal. What's up, sister?
Hey, y'all.
So this is, our podcast is all about, right, struggling into the tension of what we think leaders should be talking about and wrestling with.
Yeah.
And so we want to bring it up here, especially those in the church. Here's our topic today is why are Christians, and let's even be specific, like institutions, leaders, why are we so horrible at conflict? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so what are, for you, Len, what are some things that, because leaders and Christians have been horrible at conflict, like what's the results of that?
A lot of church hurt.
A ton of church hurt.
A ton of church hurt. A lot of people not knowing how to really work with each other, live with each other well, love each other well.
Yeah.
Because they can't confront like hard things. So instead, people have a lot of expectation, a lot of missed expectation. There's a lot of assumptions taking place.
Yeah.
And because the conversations are not happening, people just assume they don't like me. They don't want me to grow here. They don't, all the things.
Yeah.
And then there's this great split.
Yeah.
And then there's more splits.
Over and over and over.
Over. And more churches being planted.
Yeah, right?
Because of splits, not because of divine, like call.
But I mean, I even find it interpersonally with Christians where it's just like they'll over spiritualize it. They'll say something like, hey, it is what it is. Hey, I'm just going to wait till the Lord moves them, or I'm going to, we'll just pray about it, which obviously I'm about prayer, but there's an engagement there. And what I find with believers is you don't want to have the conversation. And there's a fear around that. And I actually think the fear comes down to and affects our relationship with God. If you're not having conflict here, that means that you're not actually having conflict here, which for some people out there might be mind-blowing. Like, why would I have conflict with God? And it's not that you're against God, or it's not that, but any healthy relationship will have conflict. That's actually how you grow, because you grow in trust. Like, Lynn, if you and I have an issue and you're upset about something, you bring it to me and we work through that conflict. Now you know that I love you enough to be able to either humble myself, say I'm sorry, dig into it with you, also offer, hey, well, this is what I was offended by. That once we get through it and it works and there's still care and love there, then there's that's a grown trust.
Yeah.
On the grown trust, then I know that I can bring things up to you because you're not going to attack me. You're not going to come down on me. You're not going to break relationship. We're going to work it out. And so many believers do not have that type of relationship with people. They do not get in conflict. And then on the urban side, sometimes we go on the other opposite side. We're like conflict all day.
Yeah, like what's good?
What's happening?
Yeah,
like
everything is a trigger. Everything is and
it pops off immediately. Like
absolutely,
I'll fight that dude, and you're like, Pastor, what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's going on? I thought we were ambassadors of peace. We follow the Prince of Peace, but that also brings us back to the place where, because we're ambassadors of the Prince of Peace, we're like, well, and we think that is peace. Yeah. That avoidance is peace. Peace is passiveness.
Passivity, right. Mm-hmm.
And I think I think this is one of the major issues in the church.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, when I was younger, if I thought someone had a problem with me, I would confront them, right? Like I'm confronting people like
would you?
Yeah, like what's good? Do you have a problem? What's good? Like that was my thing. I don't know. I was just so angry. And to me, I just thought people always had problems with me. When I really started getting serious with God, and I think my involvement with the church became more like I'm a PK, so not out of obligation, but because this is like where I feel called to serve.
Yeah.
That part of me was completely, I want to say, like, instead of me turning that into a healthy version of engaging with conflict, it completely went away. Because I felt like in order to be a good person, I would even use these words, right? I need to shy away from engaging in those type of conversations.
Right.
Because I used to say, well, I know me, if I was to ask someone, why'd you do this? Or if they have a problem, I'm going to get upset and then I'm going to want to fight or I'm going to want to do this.
Right.
So in order to be a good Christian, I'll just avoid or I'll just stay under what has been bothering me. Like, I just won't say anything. So if I feel like someone would continually say things to offend me or do things to hurt me, instead of, back in the day, I'd have been like, yo, why do you keep doing that? Instead of that, I would just take it because they didn't really mean to do it.
Right.
So let's just keep the peace. And I want to be a good Christian.
Was there a part of it where you felt like, if as I'm doing that, that's almost like that's an act of, faith?
Yeah.
It's my obedience to God.
Absolutely. All of the things.
Yeah.
So I would just stay in that. That would just be my norm because for me, the alternative would have been fighting.
Right.
Like no middle ground.
There was no middle place where it's like, I'm either I'm gonna mess you up, you know, give you the 3-piece right here, right?
Absolutely.
Or
curse you out.
It's like, I'm not, like, I have to avoid it. I think, here at the Radical Middle, right? Again, friends, the middle's not centrist. So a lot of times people might think the middle is like, hey man, like, I just don't want to. No. That the middle is where we come together to dialogue and wrestle with the truth. And the reality is, when you offended me, I experienced something. And so you and I have to dig into the truth of the matter of that. Is that what you meant? This is what I experienced. Like, why did you do that? Like, help me understand. Like, there has to be the conflict there, or there's no depth of relationship. And no wonder our churches are so shallow.
So shallow. We can't go deep.
I mean, look at our country. Our country's shallow.
Oh.
Like, brittle.
Extremely.
Like, you can't, I have to be careful about my language. And you should, there's wisdom in that. But I'm going to offend this person, or I'm going to offend that person, or I'm going to offend everybody because that's my right. And I believe this, and I go, man, we don't have the maturity and the ability, and we have the Spirit of God in us, that with the fruit of the Spirit, to be able to go, hey, can we talk about this? Can we examine this together? Right. And I think if we could figure this out as believers, I mean, I honestly think game changer. I know in leadership,
oh yeah, absolutely.
This is a game changer.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really tough, right? This is what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about just culturally in the church, this is not modeled, right? So someone that I would say has a healthy outlook on this may even try to engage in some of this healthy conflict and dialogue and wouldn't receive any fruit from it because the other parties are not even, they don't even know how to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They have no idea. So I guess so for instance, I have a problem with you. You did something to offend me, right? Or I did something to offend you. I come to you, I say, hey, Tommy, can we talk? I noticed there's a change in our relationship. And this is the response from a lot of Christian leaders. No, we're good. I'm fine. It's been a rough season for me and I'm just, trusting God to get out of it. So now this person who's trying to engage in healthy dialogue and conflict.
I just shut you down.
Yeah, you just shut me down. So now I can't even do it. The relationship continues to be strained. You're still liking my posts on Instagram. Yeah. But the relationship continues to be weird. And I now have to sit in this like, well, maybe
it's almost like a weird form of gaslighting.
Yeah,
because then you're like, well,
oh my God.
Maybe
it's me.
Yeah, I guess nope.
Maybe I just need to.
Right.
But I think my heart goes out to that leader that's trying to get healthy. I see a lot of our younger leaders really trying to engage in this holistic, and they come to the church and to try to practice these things. And because the culture is not there, again, they're gaslighted. So I don't know. What do you have to say about that? About the fact that conflict has to be resolving conflict has to be mutual.
Oh yeah.
And what happens when it's not?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, so I've been practicing this a long time. I'm that person who, if you follow the Enneagram, I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. So I was like, I'm very much like how you were when you were younger. I'm like, let's just deal with this, right? Now, when I was younger, it was like physically fighting,
Absolutely, yeah.
or like, was happening. When I got older, I started following Christ more. It really became about an area that this came about is if I really love you, I would confront you. Like that's how I saw it. And then I had to learn how to do that well. Because I couldn't just, even my personality now. My daughter the other day said, "Why do you say it to me like that?" She had some type of skin mask thing on. Yeah. And I saw her, I said, "What's up with your face?" She's like, "Why you say it like that? Why you got to be like, what's up with my face?" Like, and I was like, she brought it up again today. I said, "I'm sorry. I apologize. Like, I'll work on
your delivery
coming at you differently." Because that's not what I meant. What I meant was just like, dude, what do you got going on? Like, what is this thing? Like, I was actually interested.
Yeah.
The way it came off was that, okay, cool. That process of me going, I've offended you. I actually love you. How can I engage differently? Then I can learn, oh, this is how people are perceiving me. I'm actually really good at conflict. Like people come to me, I will never be defensive. I'll be like, oh, okay, let's talk about that. And then I'll ask questions. I'll seek to understand. And then I'll ask for forgiveness. Once I understand the offense and we've worked through it, I understand that. And what's helped me with that is I don't see you as coming against me. I see that there is something else that happened that you and I have to actually look at together. So if I make fun of you and we're around here and I'm just playing, I'm actually just trying to connect you, but you take offense to it and you come later and you go, "Man, why you say that in front of all those people? Like embarrassed me."
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, you're not coming against me. I'm saying there's this thing that happened. Can we look at this thing? I said this. Here's actually how I meant it. You're going, that's not how I took it. And then I can go, I'm really sorry. And then you can understand that I was trying to connect with you.
Right.
I wasn't trying to come down on you, but it wasn't, you're not against me. And this is what leaders do. It's like, I'm shamed because you felt a certain way about how I acted. And that shames me. No, we're looking at this thing out here. So you and I are both looking at this event or this happening, these words, this action. And that way, if I can separate it from myself, then I can go. And it's easier for me to go, I'm sorry about that. And then I can go, how can I make it right? Mm-hmm. And this, I'm like literally giving you an example of what's happened to where I've gone back to everybody in that group and said, "Hey guys, I made fun of Lenmarie. That wasn't right. I make it right."
Yeah.
And you know what happens? Instead of people being like, "Oh, I'd be embarrassed," right? Guess what happens? What do you think happens? Everybody's like, "I respect that."
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
"Oh, that's really cool. Oh, you're a humble leader, Tommy. Oh, I'm good with you now."
Yeah.
I've been able to see what other people see and I can correct that.
Yeah.
And then everybody that was in the room goes, "Oh, that was really cool."
And you're now modeling that for that. So that's creating culture.
It totally creates culture. Yeah. And then so people go, oh, the other problem I've had too for leaders is like, I am really open. I remember somebody said, "Man, they felt all these certain types of ways and they felt like I was their dad." And so there are all these layers to it, right? And I said, "Man, why didn't you just bring it to me? Whenever you've brought something to me, have I ever been defensive?" And he's like, "No." But then he said, "But you are hard to approach." And so then, and I continue to work on that because I go, my face, my intensity on things, my body language can all tell you, please don't. Like, it tells you something other than actually what's my heart. And that's difficult.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So those are some ways that I've actually like, how do I do this conflict thing? But I just want to emphasize, like, if Christians don't deal with this part of it, the shallowness that you're going to have with other people, but the more importantly, the shallowness you have with God, because you have to wrestle with God.
Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
In the Bible.
Yeah. So I think the framework for this, for conflicts, because if people go like, "Lynn, where do you and I get this idea that we just have to be like really passive. Like,
Yeah.
where's that? Like, where have you seen that? Where do you think we get that from? Like in scripture?
Oh, like who is really passive?
Yeah, or like, why do we interpret scripture
Yeah,
in
because of
that
all the peace stuff. Like,
piece? Yeah.
yeah, I the person I thought about was like Gideon.
Okay. Yeah.
Like he, him hiding and not really wanting to like. I know people talk about him accepting who he is, his identity, but I also see that as like real passivity, like him
Yeah.
not even wanting to lead the people well, and even Saul, him too. Like they're mad at him because they have to go out to war, leave their wives, and he's like, I don't know what to do, so let me just disobey God instead of like wrestling with God. Like, God, we're in the middle of war right now, and you said, you know what I mean? Like even that piece. So I think there's a lot of just like humans in the Bible that operated that way.
Absolutely. I think a lot of it too is like when we look at Jesus, he goes like, hey, if somebody slaps you on the cheek, like turn the other cheek.
Yeah. That
And
Matthew, the Sermon on the Mount. Yeah.
we interpret that like, oh, dude, we just got to be passive and just got to take all the,
that's good.
the crap that people give us. And we have the idea of Jesus dying on the cross. It's like I think there's a subliminal thing there where people are like, well, I mean, I got to carry my cross. And so
I gotta be a servant.
We interpret that into there has to be an absence of conflict.
Right.
But when I look at it, I go, no, the Jewish way of understanding God, which are spiritual ancestors, we take that, right, is in Genesis, like Jacob's ladder, where Jacob encounters God and he wrestles with God. Jewish understanding of that would be, that's actually what God wants.
Yeah.
God wants you to wrestle with him. He wants you to wrestle with his word. The radical middle is based on that. It's radically for Jesus, like we're following Christ. The middle is where you wrestle with truth. Like you and I have to, it's okay that we disagree. In fact, I can't learn from you if we don't.
Yeah.
Like what kind of growth do I have if you and I never disagree, or we're like, oh, I've never thought of it that way, or like, why do you see it that way? And so the wrestling with God part is essential, I think, for the way of the radical middle, but I mean, just for the way of Jesus followers, where we have to be able to have a safe enough space, trust each other enough to be like, no, I don't
agree.
I don't agree with that. Or why do you think that? Or how come you look at that scripture that
way? Yeah.
And so I think for us, people are biblically illiterate. They don't engage in it. Then on top of that, they're nervous that I don't want to offend you. What if you believe in women in ministry and I don't?
Right.
Is there a space for us to be in relationship if we really on something that's I know is really close to your heart, fundamental, like and that's not what I believe, but right, if things like that, right? And can you
can you still say that's your brother or your sister? Yeah.
For sure. In fact, if I can't do it with you, how am I supposed to love people that don't even believe?
Strangers, right? And that's the command, right?
In what we believe,
correct. Which is why we're so bad at it, at evangelizing, at loving others well. As it's because we're uncomfortable. Right. We're to sitting with people that don't believe the same way that we do, because we're afraid to engage in those conversations. So because of that, we just stay in our little bubble and do, church as.
I heard this this stat the other day, or no, it wasn't a stat. There was a group of pastors got together, and there's some big name, speakers and everything, and it was all these pastors together, and they were talking about politics, and they talked about how we're looking at this next season of, this next voting season and election. Hey, are you worried about all the division in your churches? And it was interesting because the pastors were like, no. And one of the reasons they said no is because of 2016 and 2020 into 2024, because of those two election seasons, everybody has already gone to their camp.
Right.
And so the church has already been kind of like weeded out in some ways, where it's like, no, we all believe it's groupthink and we all believe the same thing. And of course, this is God's candidate. And of course, this is what, and it's like, I think that's terrible.
It's horrible. Yeah. And I don't think that's the way of Christ at all.
Right. Because then that's the way of the world. Like, who cares if like, how's it a witness if we all just believe? This is an interesting thing. If we all just believe in a certain way, that's outside and above the way of Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
and there's only groupthink there.
Yeah.
Then you don't grow.
I'm thinking about, as you talk about this, about conflict, politics, the church, there's a book called Mirror to the Church. It's written by, I forgot his name, Katangale, I think is his last name, a Rwandan man.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about the genocide in Rwanda.
Yeah.
And the portion of the book that always stands out to me, I use it so much, is he says, we were all gathered together at choir practice the Saturday before Easter, singing songs. But as soon as that like radio announcement went out, right? If you know much about like the Hutus and the Tutsis,
Yeah.
on Easter Sunday, we, we were out with our like spears and our like our weapons, machetes and stuff, fighting against each other based on who is Hutu and who is Tutsi. So they were together, joined together by choir practice, but they never had questions about the fact that they were different. They never sat down and dealt with that, right? So now the next day, whenever the call came to like to radicalize, they all went to their separate, well, I'm on this tribe and that tribe, and this is really, my identity. We never had the conversation. We never went deep with each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We never talked to each other about how this conflict, how it affects us as Christians. So now, the day after Easter Sunday, the politician makes that announcement on the radio.
Yeah.
And the church is immediately divided because they never went deep. And the whole premise of the book is it's a mirror to the church in America. And this book is years ago, right? And look, and we're seeing it now. Yeah. So could you imagine, just because we can't engage in conflict, 2020 happened because we couldn't engage in conflict, right?
I mean, I think this is a huge point because I'm like, man, because here's the other part of it. It's easy to look at the politics and our society and just kind of like, well, I mean, if these people did this or these people did this, or if they just got with this agenda or that. But what we're talking about gets played out around the dinner table. It gets played out at your work. This is a very individualized, like, you have to deal with conflict. Yeah. And Jesus gives us the blueprint in Scripture. Right? Matthew 18, he shows us. There's all the Scripture in the New Testament about how do we engage with each other. Man, there's all this Scripture in the Old Testament about how to engage with each other, how to make things right. I mean, he gave us the law, as a grace to go, okay, obviously you don't even know how to behave with each other. You can read all those things and continue to extrapolate from that and be like, oh, okay. So the big theme here is, how do I engage with my neighbor? Mm-hmm. Conflict is inevitable because of sin. And yet there's this weird gap between, we talk about sin all day long and never deal with, how do you deal with conflict well? Yeah. It's weird to me. And I think it could bring a lot of healing to our country. And I think there's a responsibility on the individual believer. You can get better at conflict. Yeah. And there's great books out there about it that are actually secular. You know what I mean? And that you can read about that. And what's one of my favorite ones? It's
Conversation something.
Fierce Conversations.
Fierce Conversations.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it just gives you a framework. It gives you even like, here's like 90 seconds on how you bring it to someone. Here's how you, like, go and get that book, Fierce Conversations. Yeah. But it can help Christians then live out the biblical principles that we find, and what that looks like. Because I really don't see a lot of believers do this well. Yeah. And definitely not a lot of leaders. Like, it's terrible.
It is horrible. Yeah. I think a Christian version probably would be John Bevere, The Bait of Satan, like of offense.
Yeah. What's it called?
The Bait of Satan, I think he calls it. Yeah, which is the offense.
Yeah.
And how like to avoid offense and just dealing with conflict. I think that's another one that might, for those that's like, I don't read secular books.
Sure, yeah.
That's a good option as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't say it's conflict. It says it's offense, but I think offense comes because of the avoidance of conflict.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the last thing I'd say on this is it is interesting for me, just on a personal note.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really good with conflict, and I'm finding in my marriage after 20 plus years of marriage.
Yeah.
I'm finding, and not just in marriage, but even in my close relationships, I'm finding an avoidance of conflict. Like I wonder if it's like I'm just tired, or I feel like the stakes are so high. Like, ooh, I don't. There's some things even in my marriage where I've avoided conflict, and I'm like, dude, I'm not afraid of anybody except this woman I'm married to, right? Who I love.
She's amazing.
So much.
Yeah.
And that's why I get nervous about it. And I think that's a reality that we have to deal with too. We get it. We're not downplaying why we don't get into conflict, but you have to front yourself if you really love God, if you really love others.
Yeah.
You have to get good at conflict.
Yeah.
And there's a pathway to it where in the conflict, Rachel and I had a conversation last night. I said, hey, this really bothered me. And I had to walk through it. And it's weird with somebody that you know so well, but I had to walk through, hey, when I share this, I need you to acknowledge it. I need you to say you're sorry if you are.
Yeah.
And then you can bring up the offense that you also experienced.
For sure.
So we had to have these ground rules, even 21 years in of going, okay, we've got out of practice of this. We're in a different stage of life. We have to have good conflict.
Yeah.
And I found over the last 6 years or so, I kind of just stopped. And I think it was part of it, self-preservation. I think it was, life coming at us, but so I get it. So there's a lot of grace for you guys out there.
Yeah.
We get it, but we have to be better at conflict.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the essence of what you're saying too is that even as we get better at conflict, it's still one of those daily, weekly things that we have to intentionally practice, because it's so much easier to just be like, nah, I'll let this one slide.
Yeah.
So the grace comes with just the idea of we're going to be wrestling with this for the rest of our lives. And it's okay. We all have to do it. So Tommy, you said it so much, but I just think to land this plane, how does dealing with conflict, how does that relate to the radical middle?
Yeah. So I would say the premise of the radical middle is really around conflict, honestly. Mm-hmm. And it's how can we radically follow Jesus? Because if you're not following Jesus, I don't know why. I get avoiding conflict, or I get doing conflict in a wrong way. I'm going to fight everybody. It's my way or the highway. I get that. But because of Jesus, I come down to the middle part where you and I have to wrestle with the truth. This is an area of conflict inherently. We're going to have that. And so the radical middle of this is the key to following God is to wrestle with him, to wrestle with the scripture, to wrestle with him and actually have some of that conflict with him. God, I don't understand why you let that happen. I don't understand why this didn't come through. I don't understand. Have the conversation.
Yeah.
Because the relationship is the conversation.
Yeah.
And if you're having these fake, hey, everything's good, like your example with the pastor, oh no, we're good. That means someone's not being honest.
Yeah.
And so I think the radical middle part of this is you have to engage conflict if you want to grow deep. If you want to grow deep in relationship with others, with God, and with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because if no one's challenging you and going, hey, Lynn, that's not the way you're thinking about that, or the way you're behaving, or the way you're engaging that's not actually who God created you to be. It's not in accordance to God's word and truth. And it's not what God has for you. If no one loved you enough to bring that up to you, does anybody love you?
Yeah.
So I think those are the areas of tension that we have to.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This conversation actually is helping me a lot. My mind is moving too, because it's just a daily thing.
It is. And I'm convicted of it too, because I'm even last night with Rach, I'm Oh man. And you know what? I trusted her. She responded well. We worked through it, and it was really good for our marriage.
Yeah.
That's like last night.
So yeah. That's great. Well, y'all, thank you so much for joining us again for another episode of The Radical Middle. Make sure and subscribe, tell your friends, share it on all the platforms. We really believe that these are the conversations that we should be having as leaders. So thank you and see you next time.